أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Lesson number 257, Surah Az-Zukhruf, ayah number 26 to 56. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ وَقَوْمِهِ. And mention when Ibrahim a.s. said to his father and also to his people. What did he say to them? إِنَّنِي بَرَاء. Indeed, I am disassociated. مِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ. From that which you worship. Ibrahim a.s., he declared his disassociation with his people. And who are his people? His father and his own nation. And what does he say over here? إِنَّنِي بَرَاء. The word bara is from the root letters bara, hamza. And the word bara is actually a masdar. The word bara is actually a masdar, just as the word bara'ah. Surah bara'ah. And it also gives a meaning of ism sifa. So bara also gives a meaning of bari. You understand? Bara also gives a meaning of bari. So the word bara is also used as ism sifa. So it gives a meaning of bari, meaning one who is disassociated. And what does it mean by bara'ah? What does it mean by the word bara? Bara is basically to declare disassociation from something, to declare that you have nothing to do with something. And the word bara is everything that a person does not like, and he finds a way of getting away from it. Anything you don't like, and you are looking for a way to get away from it. Which is why the word is also used for becoming free of an illness, becoming cured after an illness. Because illness, disease is something that nobody likes. When a person has it, he just wants to get rid of it. Similarly, a blame, a false accusation. A person tries to declare himself innocent. So bara'ah is also declare one's innocence. So when a person is proven innocent. So innani bara, I am bara, meaning I have nothing to do with what? Mimma ta'budun, that which you worship. Meaning I am completely disassociated from your worship, from your shirk, and also from your idols. I am innocent of it. I do not do it myself. I have nothing to do with it. I am not a part of it. And I do not approve of it either. Innani bara'un mimma ta'budun. And notice mimma meaning anything, whatever that you worship. Because the people of Ibrahim a.s., they were an idolatrous nation. They used to worship multiple gods. So over here we see that he disowned his father's and his people's worship of idols. He did not follow them blindly. In the previous ayat, what did we learn? That there are many people of the past, of the present, what do when it comes to religion? They just follow the ways of their forefathers. But Ibrahim a.s., he used his mind. He didn't just do something just because everybody was doing it. And he didn't just not do it, but he also declared that he had nothing to do with it. إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي فَإِنَّهُ سَيَهْدِينِ. Except for he who has created me, indeed he will guide me. What does it mean by this? That the one who has created me, him I worship. إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي. The one who has created me, him I do worship. And I continue to worship him. And the word illa over here can be understood in two ways. First of all, muttasil, meaning it is connected with what was mentioned previously. So an exception is being made. And we can understand this as that the people of Ibrahim a.s., they were an idolatrous nation, but they also used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like the people of Makkah. They believed in Allah, they worshipped Him, but at the same time they also worshipped many other gods. So in the previous ayah it is mentioned, إِنَّنِي بَرَاءٌ مِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ. I have nothing to do with anything that you worship. However, إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي, except for the one who created me. Him, I continue to worship. And illa can also be understood as disconnected. Meaning I have nothing to do with that which you worship. However, the one who has created me, him only I worship. الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي. And why should I not worship him? In Surah Yasin, ayah 22, we learned that the person who believed in the messengers, what did he say? وَمَا لِيَ لَا أَعْبُدُ الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. That why should I not worship the one who created me? If He is my creator, I should be worshipping Him. He is the one who deserves my ibadah. وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ, and eventually all of us are going back to Him. So Ibrahim a.s. said the same thing to his people. I don't worship your gods, however I worship the one who has created me. فَإِنَّهُ سَيَهْدِينِي, and soon He will guide me. He will show me the way. Meaning He will show me the way to the truth, and He will show me where to go. Because we see that Ibrahim a.s. after declaring this bara'ah, he left his people. He migrated from there. Now Ibrahim a.s., when did he say this statement? Why did he say this to his people? We learned that in the previous ayat, what was mentioned? How people blindly follow the ways of their forefathers. And in these ayat mainly, the blind following of the forefathers is being condemned. That a person must not do something simply because his parents are doing it, especially when it goes against the haqq. Rather, he should open up his eyes, he should use his mind that Allah has given, and accept the truth, even if the entire society is against it. So over here we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents the beautiful example of Ibrahim a.s., which is a practical example of how he declared himself innocent of the ways of his forefathers, and he also disassociated himself from their customs and practices, because their customs and practices were based on shirk. And this was an open announcement. He said it very clearly, openly, that إِنَّنِي بَرَاءٌ مِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ. I have nothing to do with that which you worship. I will not worship anyone except Allah, the one who has created me. And I'm going to leave you. I'm not staying with you, because if I stay with you, then what's going to happen? I'm going to be forced into this way of life as well. So sayahdini, when I will leave, Allah will guide me. In Surah Az-Zukhruf, ayah 99, we learn that Ibrahim a.s. said, وَقَالَ إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينَ. And he said, indeed, I will go to my Lord, He will guide me. And in Surah Al-An'am, ayah 77, we learn, فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ لَإِن لَّمْ يَهْدِنِي رَبِّي لَأَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الضَّالِّينَ. So he sought guidance from who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his khaliq. And we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also showed him the way. Allah showed him the way to the truth when he was surrounded by darknesses. If you think about it, the entire society does shirk. No person stays away from shirk. It is the religion, it is the culture. Just imagine. So we see that he was surrounded in all of that darkness, but yet Allah showed him the truth. When? When he used his own mind. When he questioned. When he opened up his eyes. When he didn't just accept everything. So Allah showed him the way. And we see that after Ibrahim a.s., he received prophethood. He learned about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did he do? Did he just keep it to himself? No. He also told his people about it. And very actively, he questioned them that why do you worship these idols? And he also showed to them that these idols had no power at all by breaking all of the idols when all the people had gone. So it wasn't just that Ibrahim a.s. had the truth to himself and he considered his people to be foolish. No, he had the truth and he also showed the truth to them. But we see that a point came when his people were no longer willing to listen to him. Isn't it so? When they threw him into the fire. When his father said, stop, otherwise I'm going to stone you to death. And his father said, leave me. So when that happened, Ibrahim a.s., he didn't compromise on his religion. He didn't give up. But rather, what did he do? He said, إِنَّنِي بَرَاءٌ. I have nothing to do with what you do, and I am leaving. And then he left. So we see that it was an entire process. That how at the beginning he accepted the truth, he changed himself, and then he also invited his people to the truth for a long time. He struggled a lot in that cause, and when it didn't work, eventually he left that place. Eventually he left. And we see that he didn't just leave secretly, but he left while announcing that I disown your ways. I do not agree with you. You understand? That Ibrahim a.s. made it very clear to them, I don't agree with you. I disown your ways, I disown your false practices. Tell me something. Is it important to make this declaration? Is it? Why? Why is it important to make this declaration? To let people know that you disagree with them on their wrong, when it comes to their wrong practices. Why is it necessary? Because silence is approval. Generally, what do we think? Let the other person do whatever he's doing, and you do whatever you're doing. Don't say anything to them so that you can do whatever you want to do. But the fact is that when you don't show that you disagree with the other, then in a way you are supporting them. In a way you are approving of their false practices. And you are considered a part of them. And when you're considered a part of them, you will also be held accountable for it. You will be questioned about it. So a person, he must not agree with it in his heart and also openly. So we see that Ibrahim a.s., what did he do? He made that announcement before he left the people. Now we know that on the Day of Judgment, the believers and the disbelievers, will they be separated? Of course. The truth and the falsehood, will that be separated? Of course. وَامْتَازُوا الْيَوْمَ أَيُّهَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ. The criminals will be told to stand apart on that day. Because in the dunya people are living together, however in the hereafter people will be separated. But we see that before that even it is very important that a person maintains his Muslim identity in this world. And he makes it known. And he lets people be aware that he doesn't agree with their false practices. He denounces the false ways. In matters of religion, you have to be very clear, not just beat around the bushes. You have to be clear, you have to let people know of what you agree with, what you disagree with, because eventually you will be questioned about it. And eventually, whatever you don't speak out against, it's as though you are approving of it, so you'll be held accountable for that. So we see that Ibrahim a.s., he declared this disassociation before he left. And we learn from this that this is very necessary for us. That living in this world today, we cannot just say everybody is right. We cannot be silent when we see something wrong happening. We have to speak out against it. We have to show our disapproval. We have to show our disapproval. Because if we don't show our disapproval, then what's going to happen? Evil will thrive. And we will be considered as those who accept it. And we don't want to be of those people. And we see that the Prophet ﷺ, he also declared this bara'ah. When was that? At the conquest of Makkah. After that, in fact, when the Prophet ﷺ sent Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu to Makkah for Hajj, remember? In Surah Tawbah, as we learn. So basically, when Surah Tawbah was revealed, and that was around 9th year after Hijrah. So, one thing that we learn from this is that the declaration of disassociation is not the first day. You understand? When is it? When is it? After making the truth clear to the people. It wasn't that in Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ, he invited the people and he said, that's it. I disown you. I don't have anything to do with you. No. Later on, in Medina, towards the end of the Madani period, that is when that declaration was made. Ibrahim a.s. as well. When did he declare this bara'ah? When? The first time he invited his people to the truth? No. He invited them to the truth in many, many ways. And then eventually when he was leaving, then he declared the bara'ah. Now, we also have to be very careful. Because sometimes what happens, we learn about the deen, we learn about something, and then we go on telling everybody, this is kufr, this is shirk, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is right. And what happens then? People get very offended. And they don't want to listen to you even. So, remember that this process is in several stages. Initially, there is psychological separation, mental separation. When you don't think along the same lines as the rest of the society. When you don't do what they do. When you have a different goal than theirs. And in that time, what are you doing? Are you just living separately? No. It's an obligation on you to also call them to the truth. What do we learn in Surah Fussilat? وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. So calling people to Allah is necessary. But after a long time, when things are not working out, and there seems to be no acceptance on the part of the other, and your iman is getting affected, your practices are getting affected, then the bara'ah has to be declared. This is why we also see that when a person becomes a Muslim, what does he need to do? Just say that I'm a Muslim in his heart? No, he has to declare it. He has to declare it. So we see that Ibrahim a.s. over here, he declares his disassociation from his people, from their false practices. And this step that he took was not only for his own sake, to protect his faith, so that he could practice, he could worship Allah alone, but this was a way of preserving the iman of the future generations as well. Isn't it so? That Ibrahim a.s., when he left those people, when he declared his disassociation from them, then he went and established Makkah. Isn't it? So, and after that, people worshipped Allah alone. And we see that in this is also an example for those after him. In this is also an example for those people after him, that the initial stage is of inviting people, and then the final stage is of declaring the disassociation. And we see that this declaration of disassociation, you may have heard of the terms al-wala and al-bara. This is a requirement of iman. Remember that. This is a requirement of iman. But unfortunately, many people misunderstand this. The first thing that they do is bara. Bara, bara. We have nothing to do with this. We disown this. We disown that group. We disown these people. We disown that nation. First thing that they do. If you think about it, have we fulfilled our responsibility of calling people to Allah? Have we? No, we haven't. So many people have no idea about what Islam is, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and there we go and say, bara, bara, bara. This is inappropriate. This goes against the sunnah of the messengers. The sunnah of the messengers is, call people, call people, call people. And then when they don't listen, after years and years and years of efforts, then you go and declare the disassociation. So remember that now we are in that stage of calling people to Allah, delivering the message to the people. And later is the stage of al-bara. And this, as I mentioned earlier, this is a requirement of iman. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ أَحَبَّ لِلَّهِ وَأَبْغَضَ لِلَّهِ وَأَعْطَى لِلَّهِ وَمَنَعَ لِلَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَكْمَلَ الْإِيمَانِ. That whoever loves for the sake of Allah and hates for the sake of Allah, gives for the sake of Allah and withholds for the sake of Allah, then that person, he has perfected his faith. Not the one who hates for his own sake, not the one who loves for his own sake. No, hates, loves, gives, withholds for whose sake? For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَجَعَلَهَا, and he made it كَلِمَةً بَاقِيَةً, a word remaining, فِي عَقِبِهِ, among his descendants. Why? لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that they might return. وَجَعَلَهَا, Ibrahim a.s. made it. What does it refer to? It refers to the statement of the kalima of Tawheed. Because when he said, إِنَّنِي بَرَاء مِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي, in a way he was declaring Tawheed. That I have nothing to do with these gods of yours. I only worship who? Allah alone. So the statement of Tawheed, the affirmation of God's oneness, this kalima, وَجَعَلَهَا, he made it, kalimatan, a word, a statement that was baqiyah, that remained. Meaning, although he passed away, but this kalima, it continued to be amongst who? Amongst his future generations. So his descendants, the people who came after him, his progeny, what was the legacy that they received from Ibrahim a.s.? Of Tawheed. So وَجَعَلَهَا كَلِمَةً بَاقِيَةً, he left it as a legacy to be continued behind him. Where? فِي عَقِبِهِ, in his progeny. The word aqib is from the root letters Ain Qaf Ba. And aqib, as you know, is used for heel, the end of the foot, and it is also that which follows subsequently, that which comes after. And the word aqib is figuratively used for children and grandchildren and so on. And especially it is used for the descendants of a person after he has passed away. Meaning, you won't use the word aqib while a person is still alive. Okay? Like for example, a person cannot say, oh, this is my aqib. Okay? When is the word aqib used? When the person has died, he's gone, and his children, his grandchildren, his descendants live on. So his children, his descendants, what will they be called? His aqib. So, in the progeny, in the descendants of Ibrahim a.s., he left the legacy of Tawheed. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that they may return. So that they may return to what? To the worship of Allah alone. That even if they are surrounded by shirk, even if they are surrounded by darknesses, still the concept of Tawheed is there. Whenever they look up to Ibrahim a.s., what do they remember? Tawheed. So لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, they would return to the worship of Allah alone, they would return to Tawheed. So we see that Ibrahim a.s. left this word as an example to be followed by those of his progeny who were guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He emphasized the worship of Allah alone during his life and also at the time that he was dying. Isn't it so? What do we learn in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 132? That وَوَصَّى بِهَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبُ يَا بَنِيَّ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى لَكُمُ الدِّينَ فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Do not die except that you are Muslim. So he emphasized Tawheed before he passed away to his children, and Yaqub a.s. did the same as well in his footsteps. That before he passed away, what did he say to his children? فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And we see that it wasn't just that at the time of his death he instructed them. No, throughout his life, this is what he taught them. And it wasn't just that he taught them, but he also made dua for them, that they remain firm on the worship of Allah alone, that they remain as devoted servants of Allah. So many du'as of Ibrahim a.s. are mentioned. In Surah Ibrahim, ayah 40, we learn, رَبِّ جَعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. That, oh my Lord, make me the one who establishes the prayer, worships you, and also of my children. وَتَقَبَّلْ دُعَا. And also accept the dua. And we see that Ibrahim a.s., when he was made an imam, who did he remember at that time? Again, his children. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him, إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا, what did he say? قَالَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. Make them leaders. Leaders of what? Of Tawheed, who are guiding people, calling people to Allah. And we see that when he was laying the foundations of the Kaaba, along with his son Ismail a.s., was he making any dua at that time? Yes, he was making dua. What did he pray? رَبَّنَا وَجَعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ. That make us both, those two who are submissive to you, and also from our descendants, an entire nation who is submissive to you. In Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 128. And another dua that he made for the guidance of his progeny, of his descendants, in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 129, that رَبَّنَا وَبَعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. He made dua that Allah should send a messenger amongst who? In his descendants. A messenger who would teach them, a messenger who would guide them. So this is Ibrahim a.s. This is his beautiful example that we should emulate as well. He did not assimilate with the rest of the people, forgetting who he was, forgetting his identity, forgetting his duty to his Lord. No. He lived as a Muslim, the one who submitted to Allah alone. He declared his faith. He let it be known to people. And he disowned all those who contradicted his faith. So that no one would confuse him as being a mushrik. Every time he's mentioned in the Quran, how is he described? Hanifa Musliman. Isn't it so? That he lived as a Muslim, his identity is well known, and it's preserved till today. And this was an example for who? For his descendants as well. For his children as well. That your father lived as a Muslim, worshipping Allah alone, and the same is your obligation. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us in Surah Al-Mumtahina, ayah number 4, that قَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ. There is for you an excellent example in Ibrahim a.s. What is that excellent example? That he lived as a Muslim himself, and he also ensured that his children would be Muslim after he was gone. And how did he do that? By teaching them, by instructing them, by advising them, by struggling. He didn't just think that, oh, since I'm living here in Iraq, might as well live here. No, he left that place. Because he knew that if he was to live in that nation, his children would not grow up to be Muslim. Eventually his progeny, his descendants, what would they do? They would lose their identity. So he left that place. He went to another place, established Tawheed over there, established the worship of Allah alone over there. So he sacrificed a lot. He put in a lot of effort. And along with that, he also made a lot of dua. He also continuously made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Ibrahim, ayah number 35, we learn, Ibrahim a.s. made dua after he left his wife and son, that رَبِّ جَعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. That, oh my Lord, make the city secure and keep me and my children away from the worship of idols. Me and my children away from the worship of idols. So this is the way of Ibrahim a.s. A practical way, a realistic way. A realistic way. How is it realistic? Put in effort yourself. Live as a Muslim yourself. Teach your children as well. Pray for them as well. And we need to see over here that what do we want for our future generations. Many times we're only concerned about our own faith, our own belief, our own practices, our own Islam. But if you think about it, right now, it's easy. Allahu A'lam what's going to happen in the future. If we think times are very tough, times are very difficult, how do you know they make it even more difficult in a few years? So what have we planned for our children? It shouldn't be the case that we want Jannah for ourselves and for our children. We want dunya. Or we say it's up to them. No. If you want the best for yourself, then you must have the same goal for who? For who? For your children as well, for your descendants as well, for those who will come after you as well. Because it's unfair that a person wants the best for himself and he doesn't want the best for those whom he claims to love the most. Parents love their children the most. They want the best for them. So, if a person is living as a Muslim himself, then he must also want that for who? For his future generations as well. And we need to see, we need to analyze ourselves over here, that what goals do we have for our children? What do we want for them? What do we teach them? What do we emphasize the most? Because there are certain things that parents emphasize a lot. From childhood, sometimes children are told, you're going to become a doctor. You're going to become an engineer. You're going to become this. You're going to become that. And a child, he grows up with that mentality. You ask him, what are you going to do when you grow up? That's what he says. Why? My mom told me. My dad told me. Isn't it so? And for so many years, the child is prepared. Through high school, through university, through med school. And then eventually he is what his parents want him to be. Does it just happen like that? No. So much effort has gone into that. So much time parents have spent in mentally preparing their child to become who they want him to become. So, we have to see what kind of goals do we have for our children and what are we doing? What are we doing as well? What kind of efforts are we putting in to ensure that they remain firm on Tawheed? Because this work is so difficult. Living as a Muslim is a huge challenge that it requires both prayer as well as effort. Both things it needs. Ibrahim a.s. did that, right? Effort and also a lot of dua. Sometimes we only make dua and we don't put in effort. Both are necessary. A person has to strive, he has to put in effort, and he has to constantly call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help as well. Just like you do for yourself. Right? You strive to learn, and you also keep making dua to Allah. The same thing with your children. You have to do the same thing. And anything, as I mentioned earlier, that parents desire for their children, they make them do it. Isn't it? Whatever parents want for their children, they make them do it, even if their children resist a lot. Even if their children hate it a lot. And the thing is, to make your children do something, you have to sacrifice. I remember reading a book about this woman who had very high goals for her 2 daughters. And it's a pretty recent book. Perhaps some of you have heard about it as well. Battle Hymns of the Tiger Mother. That how she wanted one daughter of hers to learn piano and the other daughter of hers to learn the violin. And besides all their school education. And as I was reading that book, I would think to myself, okay, I want for my child to become a hafiz. Huh? So how she would make her daughters practice the piano and the violin every single day, whether it was a weekend or it was their birthday, or they were traveling, the violin would go with them wherever they were traveling. If they were traveling, they would find a hotel or something, or some place where there was a piano so that her daughter could practice. She would not give up. She would not give up. She refused to give up. She would drive her daughters hours and hours away, pay so much money. Why? So that her daughters were excellent pianists, right? Or a violinist. And she had to put in a lot of effort. We think, my child will become a hafiz just like that. Right? My child will become like Umar radiallahu anhu just like that. I will just make dua. Yes, you make dua, but you have to put in effort as well. We should have great visions, we should have great goals in front of us, because if we don't have a goal, then what are we striving for? And we see that companies, businesses, organizations, institutes that are successful, they have long-term goals. Not just their goals with regards to the next month or the next week, but also next year, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. What do they want to achieve? You have to have goals. You can't just assume that it will happen by itself. Exactly. Without a goal, it's just wishful thinking. But the thing is that if you want to teach your child, you will do it. You will find a way. Isn't it so that there's so many mothers who homeschool their children? Do they have degrees in geography and science and history and all of that? No, they don't. But how are they able to teach their children? How? When you want to teach your child something, you find out. You find out how you're going to do it. And you do find a way. Because the one who struggles, the one who seeks for the answer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also helps him. We underestimate children a lot. We think if they're doing memorization, they can't do anything else. If they're doing something else, they can't do memorization. But the fact is that every child is different. Every child has different capabilities. However, it's definitely possible for a child to learn many things. And sometimes you think children are too young. When I had gone for Umrah, we went to Jeddah, and over there I met this lady, and she was telling me about this particular school she goes to for memorization. And she was telling me they have a program for girls 2 years old. 2 years old. They have a program just for them, but only girls. Because it's an all-girls school. So girls as young as 2, they come and they start memorizing, and they're able to do it. They're able to do it. And the thing is, if your child can learn roly-poly, if your child can learn his ABCs and he can learn so many different songs and sing them on his own, then can he not learn the Quran? Can he not learn the Quran? Of course he can. Can he not learn dua? He can. But for you to teach your child, you have to put in the effort first. You have to make up your mind first. So Ibrahim a.s., we learn from his example, وَجَعَلَهَا كَلِمَةً بَاقِيَةً فِي عَقِبِهِ. How? Not just through wishful thinking. But he had to put in a lot of effort. He had to sacrifice a lot, move from one place to the other. See how he left Ismail a.s. in that barren desert. What distraction did he have over there? How he was there in such a pure environment, And this is how Tawheed was established. This is how the generations later, they continue to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So if you have a high goal, you have to sacrifice a lot as well. Very true that little children, their brains are like sponges. Whatever you put in, they will absorb. They're able to do it. We just underestimate children. And when something is very important to you, you have to start it very early. You can't wait for the child to turn 10, to turn 15, and then you ask him, oh, would you like to read Quran? Of course he doesn't want to. Because every time he'll open, he'll be discouraged. He can barely get through one line. Isn't it so? So if you want your child to do something, to accomplish something, you have to start very early. Why do you think they teach ABCs and the numbers and basic maths so early? So that it's not difficult later on. Ibrahim a.s., he was able to sacrifice so much. Why? Because he understood the value of Tawheed. We have it too easy. We don't understand its value. And the consequences of not having Tawheed in your life, what are the consequences? Severe. So when a person realizes the value of his goal, only then he's able to sacrifice. Only then he's able to strive for it.
Assalamu alaikum. So within the developing mind of each and every child, this absorbent mind stays with him for 5 years. And the 70% of the learning is done. What is left? 30%. And that is acquired.
Yes.
That can be acquired.
So just imagine if within the first 5 years you don't give your child a goal, that has already filled up 70% of his mind. So if you don't give it, something else will. If you see so many children are lost today, you ask someone, what do you want to do? Don't know. What's your goal in life? Nothing. No goal. Why? Because the first years have been spent, how? Wasting time, right? Not knowing what to do, where they want to go, what their goal in life is to be. So if at the beginning you don't tell your child what their identity is, who they are, you think later on it will come automatically? It'll be very difficult then. So we see that Ibrahim a.s., he put in effort. He also made dua. And as a result, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says over here that وَجَعَلَهَا كَلِمَةً بَاقِيَةً فِي عَقِبِهِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that they would return, constantly they would return to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. But we see that sometimes a person puts in all his efforts, but not everyone from his offspring takes advantage, or turns out to be the way you want them to be. Isn't it so? It's possible you see that some mothers are striving so much to make their children, good Muslims, but what happens? They give them all the training, and when they grow up, completely out of hands. We see that Ibrahim a.s., with his offspring even, the same thing happened. We learn in Surah Al-Ankabut, ayah 27, that where on the one hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَجَعَلْنَا فِي ذُرِّيَّتِهِ النُّبُوَّةَ وَالْكِتَابَ وَآتَيْنَاهُ أَجْرَهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَإِنَّهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ لَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Where on one hand there was so much good that came out of his children. On the other side, in Surah Safat, ayah 113, we learn وَبَارَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ وَعَلَى إِسْحَاقَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِمَا مُحْسِنٌ وَظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ مُبِينٌ. From among his descendants were those who were muhsin, and also those who did dhulm on themselves. In Surah An-Nisa, ayah 54 to 55, we learn فَقَدْ آتَيْنَا آلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ مُلْكًا عَظِيمًا فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ آمَنَ بِهِ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ صَدَّ عَنْهُ. From among them, some who believed, and others who were prevented from it. So, on one side, there were righteous offspring, but on the other side, there were also those who wronged themselves. But we see that on the part of Ibrahim a.s., he fulfilled his responsibility. He put in his effort. He made dua. This is why the one who turns away from the way of Ibrahim a.s., he is at fault. He is foolish. Himself. It's not Ibrahim a.s.'s fault. It wasn't that his efforts were not good enough. His prayers were not good enough. No. Those who turn away, it is their own fault. In Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 130, we learn وَمَنْ يَرْغَبُ عَنْ مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَفِهَ نَفْسَهُ. Who would turn away from the way of Ibrahim a.s. except for the one who is foolish? The one who is making a fool of himself. So, yes, parents put in effort. They must set a goal for their children. But eventually, they're not in your control. 100%. They're not in your control. You can only teach them, but eventually they'll make their own choices. But if you have done your part, you have made dua, you have put in the effort, then you are guilt-free. Then you are not held responsible. Now we see over here that the example of Ibrahim a.s. is mentioned. And the people of Makkah, they considered themselves to be the followers of Ibrahim a.s. They were also his descendants. But as time went by, what happened to the people of Makkah? Initially they were upon Tawheed, but later on, shirk crept in, to the extent that there were 360 idols just in the Kaaba, in and around the Kaaba. 360 idols. That place which was pure of shirk, was the hub of shirk now. So was it Ibrahim a.s.'s fault? No way. He put in his effort. And we see that when he put in his effort, he made dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not let his efforts go waste. Yes, many generations in the middle committed shirk, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent his final messenger. And Tawheed again was established. Until today, Tawheed is there. So, Allah does not waste the efforts of the one who is sincere. Allah does not waste his efforts at all. For the time being, there may be loss. However, in the long run, there is success. بَلْ مَتَّعْتُ هَؤُلَاءِ وَآبَاؤُهُمْ. However, I gave enjoyment to these people and also to their forefathers. حَتَّى جَاءَهُمُ الْحَقُّ. Until the truth came to them. بَلْ مَتَّعْتُ هَؤُلَاءِ. Who does هؤلاء refer to? The people of Makkah. That if you see, they claim to be the followers of Ibrahim a.s. Who was Ibrahim a.s.? Muwahhid, Hanif, Muslim, ma kana min al-mushrikeen. But we see that these people, who are they? Mushrikeen. So how come they are mushrikeen? It is because بَلْ مَتَّعْتُ هَؤُلَاءِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says over here that I have given enjoyment to these people. Enjoyment of what? Worldly life, without hastening to punish them. That if they're doing shirk, Allah has not punished them immediately. These people and also their forefathers. حَتَّى جَاءَهُمُ الْحَقُّ. Until now the truth has come to them. Which truth? The truth of the Qur'an. وَرَسُولٌ مُبِينٌ. And a clear messenger. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He answered the dua of Ibrahim a.s. That the people for some time they did go off track. For some time they did do shirk. But eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the truth to them. And He also sent a very clear messenger to them. And who does this clear messenger refer to? Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. How is he Rasulun Mubeen? That it was obvious he was a messenger. There was no doubt about him being a messenger. And also Rasulun Mubeen clarifying that he clarified to them what Tawheed is, what shirk is, what Rasulun Mubeen. But what did they do? What was the response of the people of Makkah? وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمُ الْحَقُّ. But when the truth came to them, قَالُوا, they said, هَذَا سِحْرٌ. This is magic. وَإِنَّا بِهِ كَافِرُونَ. And indeed we are of it disbelievers, meaning we don't believe in it. And they began objecting.